Supreme Leader of Iran, is dead.
You're finished. Take over your government. It will be yours to take. Police to lay down their arms. They're only going to be killed.
Ali Khamenei has been killed.
Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has been killed.
The air in Tehran was thick with more than just smog on February 28, 2026. It was thick with the scent of an ending. Inside a custom-armored Mercedes, Ali Khamenei, the man who had held Iran in an iron grip for decades, was heading toward a high-level meeting. He was 86, frail, but still the most feared man in the country. Suddenly, the sky screamed. A precision-guided ninja missile designed for surgical strikes sliced through the roof of the lead vehicle. Before his bodyguards could even draw their weapons, a second strike turned the Supreme Leader's car into a coffin of twisted metal. In an instant, the shadow of God on earth was gone. The heart of the Islamic Republic stopped beating. But to understand why the world held its breath that day, we have to go back, long before the missiles, the nuclear threats, and the revolutions. We have to go back to a dusty house in Mashhad, where a quiet boy with big glasses had no idea he would one day become a king. Born in 1939, Ali Khamenei wasn't born into royalty. He was the son of a poor cleric, Sayyid Javad Khamenei. His childhood wasn't about toys or games. It was about the Quran and cold nights. He once said his family would sometimes go to bed hungry, with nothing but a bit of bread and raisins. By his teens, Ali was deep into religious studies. He moved to the holy city of Qom, where he met the man who would change his life forever, Ayatollah Khomeini. Khomeini wasn't just a teacher. He was a firebrand who hated the Shah, the king of Iran, and his pro-Western ways. Young Ali didn't just listen. He became a foot soldier for the cause. Throughout the 60s and 70s, Khamenei was a ghost in the system. He was arrested 6 times by the Shah's brutal secret police, the Savak. They threw him into the notorious Evin prison. He was tortured. He was beaten. But every time they let him out, he went right back to the mosques, whispering revolution into the ears of the people. He became a master of soft war, using speeches and underground tapes to turn the public against the Shah. In 1979, the dam broke. The Shah fled, and Khomeini returned from exile like a conquering hero. Beside him, standing in the shadows but quickly moving to the front, was Ali Khamenei. He wasn't just a student anymore. He was now a founder of the Islamic Republican Party. But the revolution was messy. To keep power, they had to get rid of anyone who disagreed. Khamenei was appointed as the personal representative of Khomeini to the Supreme Defense Council. This is where the quiet cleric started to show his teeth. He helped purge the military of anyone loyal to the old king. This was the beginning of the reign of terror. Thousands of former officials, students, and leftists were lined up against walls and executed. Khamenei defended these actions, claiming they were cleaning the soul of Iran. Khamenei almost didn't make it to the top. In an assassination attempt by the MEK, a militant opposition group, a bomb hidden in a tape recorder exploded right in front of him. He survived, but his right arm was permanently paralyzed. Instead of slowing him down, he used the injury to his advantage. He became the living martyr. By 1981, he was elected president of Iran. He spent the next 8 years managing the brutal Iran-Iraq war, sending hundreds of thousands of young boys to their deaths in human wave attacks against Saddam Hussein's tanks. As the 80s came to a close, the big boss, Ayatollah Khomeini, was dying. Everyone wondered who would take over. Khamenei wasn't the most high-ranking scholar. In fact, many older clerics thought he wasn't qualified. But behind the scenes, a powerful man named Akbar Hashemi Rafsanjani made a move. He claimed that Khomeini, on his deathbed, wanted Khamenei to lead. It was a political masterstroke. In 1989, the poor boy from Mashhad became the supreme leader. The world thought he would be a temporary fix. They were wrong. He was about to turn Iran into his personal fortress for the next 37 years. When Khamenei took over in 1989, many thought he was just a seat warmer. He wasn't a top-tier religious scholar, and even he admitted in private that he felt unqualified. But he had a secret weapon, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC. He didn't trust the regular army, so he turned the IRGC into his own private Praetorian Guard. He gave them more than just guns. He gave them the keys to the country's bank accounts. They took over construction, oil, and telecommunications. Under Khamenei, the IRGC became a multi-billion-dollar empire that answered only to him. But absolute power requires silencing every whisper of doubt. In the 1990s, a terrifying wave of violence swept through the country's elite thinkers. It became known as the chain murders. Writers, poets, and activists started disappearing or turning up dead in their homes. People like Dariush Forouhar and his wife Parvaneh were brutally stabbed in their residence. The Ministry of Intelligence, led by figures like Saeed Imami, was carrying out a cleanup of anyone who wanted democracy. When the public found out, Khamenei called the killers rogue agents to save face, but the message was sent. Criticizing the leader was a death sentence. The first real test of his throne came in 1999. Students at Tehran University protested for freedom of the press. Khamenei didn't hesitate. He unleashed the Basij, a plainclothes paramilitary force of religious zealots. They stormed the dormitories at night, beating students in their beds. It was a bloodbath that showed the world the living martyr had no mercy for the youth. By the year 2000, the transformation was complete. The poor boy from Mashhad had silenced the clerics who looked down on him, bought the loyalty of the military, and built a wall of fear around his office. He wasn't just a leader anymore. He was a dictator in a turban. By 2009, a new generation of Iranians was tired of living in a cage. They thought they could change the system from the inside by electing a reformer, Mir Hossein Mousavi. But when the results were announced, the hardliner Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, Khamenei's hand-picked favorite, miraculously won in a landslide. The people felt robbed. Millions marched in what became known as the Green Movement. For a moment, it looked like Khamenei's regime might actually collapse, but the supreme leader didn't flinch. He gave the order. The Basij and the IRGC hit the streets with motorcycles and batons. This wasn't just a riot, it was a hunt. The image of Neda Aga Sultan dying on camera went viral, becoming the face of the revolution. Khamenei didn't care. He threw the opposition leaders, Mousavi and Mehdi Karoubi, under house arrest, where they would stay for over a decade. He chose survival over the blood of his people. While he was crushing dissent at home, Khamenei was playing a dangerous game with the world. He poured billions into a secret nuclear program. He didn't want a peaceful energy source. He wanted a shield. He watched what happened to leaders like Saddam Hussein and Muammar Gaddafi. He knew that without a big stick, he was vulnerable. This was also the era of the axis of resistance. Khamenei used his most brilliant and deadly general, Qasem Soleimani, to build a shadow empire. They funded Hezbollah in Lebanon, militias in Iraq, and helped Bashar al-Assad crush the Syrian uprising. Khamenei was no longer just the leader of Iran. He was a regional puppet master. He was fighting wars in 4 different countries without ever putting on a military uniform himself. He was at the height of his power, but the cost was the total isolation of his country. As the world moved to choke the Iranian economy to stop the nukes, the people of Iran began to starve. But inside the palaces of North Tehran, Khamenei and his inner circle didn't feel a thing. They were preparing for the final act. By 2022, the gap between Khamenei's vision and reality had become a canyon. While he boasted about Islamic resistance, the Iranian rial had crashed to record lows. The people weren't just angry, they were exhausted. But the spark that would set the country on fire didn't come from a bank or a political office. It came from a headscarf. Her name was Mahsa Amini. She was only 22. Her crime? Showing a little bit of hair. When news broke that she had died in police custody after a brutal beating, the country didn't just protest, it exploded. This was the woman life freedom movement. It was different. This time, the youth weren't asking for a recount. They were asking for Khamenei's head. Schools, oil refineries, and even the most religious cities saw teenagers dancing in the streets and burning pictures of the supreme leader. Behind the palace walls, rumors began to swirl. Reports leaked that Khamenei was battling prostate cancer. He was becoming a ghost, appearing only in highly staged videos to call the protesters agents of America and Israel. He ordered a crackdown that left over 500 dead and thousands blinded by birdshot fired by the IRGC. To instill ultimate fear, Khamenei began public executions. Young men like Mohsen Shikari and Majidreza Ranavard were hanged from construction cranes in the early morning light. Khamenei thought this would break the people's spirit. Instead, it turned his regime into a pariah state. Desperate and cornered, Khamenei made his final move. He ordered his scientists to push uranium enrichment to 90%, weapons grade. He was officially building the bomb. He figured if he had a nuclear weapon, no one could touch him, and the protesters would eventually give up. As his health failed throughout 2024 and 2025, the internal Game of Thrones began. Khamenei was grooming his son, Mashhad, to take over. This outraged the public and even other high-ranking clerics. The idea of a religious republic turning into a family monarchy was the final straw. The world was watching. The people were waiting. And inside the IRGC, some generals began to realize that if they didn't get rid of the old man, they would all go down with him. The stage was set for the fateful day in February 2026. By early 2026, the world had enough. Khamenei had crossed the red line by successfully testing a nuclear trigger in the eastern desert. Inside Iran, the Woman Life Freedom movement had turned into a full-scale underground insurgency. The supreme leader was no longer a symbol of power. He was a target. February 28, 2026. Khamenei felt safe. He was traveling in a ghost convoy. 6 identical Mercedes-Benz vehicles with jammed signals so no one could track his exact car. He was heading to a secret meeting with Ismail Qani, the head of the Quds Force, to sign the final orders for a nuclear deployment. What he didn't know was that a high-ranking member of his own inner circle, a man he had trusted for 20 years, had turned. For $50 million and a guaranteed ticket out of the country, the mole had planted a liquid chip beacon inside Khamenei's personal prayer beads. At 5:42 p.m., the order was given: execute Shadowfall. There was no massive orange fireball. The missile was a kinetic weapon, designed to kill the passenger without destroying the entire block. It sliced through the reinforced roof of the third Mercedes like it was paper. Ali Khamenei, the man who had ruled with a silver tongue and an iron fist for 37 years, died instantly. The beacon in his pocket was still pulsing. The news hit the streets of Tehran like a lightning bolt. For 30 minutes, there was total silence. People were terrified it was a trick. But then a single car horn honked, then another. The aftermath was a hurricane of chaos. His son, Mashhad Khamenei, tried to declare himself the new leader, but he was arrested by a faction of the army that had been waiting for this moment. The Islamic Republic began to fracture into a civil war between the IRGC and the regular military. The man who wanted to be the shadow of God left behind a country in ruins. But for the first time in nearly 50 years, the people of Iran saw a sunrise that didn't belong to a dictator. The era of the supreme leader was over.